On my wedding day, my grandmother saw my fiancé talking and laughing with this woman, so I... Sarah Mitchell felt her hands trembling as she finished applying her light pink lipstick. The mirror in the bridal room reflected her eyes shining with happiness, but also the typical nervousness of someone about to take the most important step of their life. That was when the door suddenly burst open. Her grandmother Martha came in hurriedly, her face pale, and an expression Sarah had never seen before. The 74-year-old woman seemed to have been running, was breathing with difficulty, and her hands were visibly shaking. "Grandma, what happened? Are you okay?" Sarah stood up immediately, leaving the lipstick on the vanity table. "My dear," Martha hesitated, glancing at the door as if someone might be listening. "I saw something that left me very worried." "What?" "Just tell me, Grandma, you're scaring me." Martha took a deep breath as if she needed to gather courage to continue. "I was going to get some water for you. I passed by the side of the church and saw Nathan talking to a woman in a red dress. They were very close, laughing. It seemed too intimate." Sarah's heart raced. Nathan Brooks, her fiancé of 3 years, had never given her any reason to be suspicious. They met in business school in Atlanta and built a solid relationship, or at least that was what she believed. "Are you sure about what you saw, Grandma?" "I am, my dear." The woman was whispering something in his ear, and he was laughing in a way. Martha shook her head. "That's not how you talk to a stranger on the day of your own wedding." Sarah felt her stomach churn. She had spent the last 6 months organizing every detail of that day. St. Jude's Cathedral in downtown Savannah was decorated with white lily arrangements she had personally chosen. The 150 guests must already be taking their seats. "Grandma, it could have been a misunderstanding. Maybe it was a cousin of his, I don't know." "Sarah, I'm 74 years old and I've seen a lot in this life. That was not a family conversation." Martha held her granddaughter's hands firmly. "You need to go there and see for yourself." The bride looked at herself in the mirror. The French lace dress that had cost 4 months of her salary now felt too heavy. The 3-meter veil that had belonged to her great-grandmother was perfectly arranged, but she felt as if she was suffocating. "I can't show up at the church now, Grandma. What if someone sees me? It's bad luck for the groom to see the bride before the ceremony. What's bad luck is marrying without knowing the truth, my dear." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Martha was right as always. The woman had raised 5 children alone after her husband abandoned her when she was only 35. She worked as a seamstress for 40 years to support her family and never let herself be carried away by illusions or fantasies. If she was worried, there was a reason. "Okay, Grandma, let's take a discreet look." The two left the room prepared especially for the bride at the back of the church. Sarah walked slowly, trying not to make noise with her heels on the stone floor of the hallway leading to the side courtyard. Her heart was beating so loudly that she was sure everyone in the church could hear it. When they reached the window overlooking the side garden, Sarah peeked carefully from behind the white linen curtain, and that was when she saw him. Nathan was just a few feet away, leaning against the exposed brick wall of the century-old church. His tie was slightly misaligned, which was strange, since he had always been meticulous about his appearance. Beside him, a dark-haired woman around 30 years old wore an elegant red dress that accentuated her silhouette. She was so close to him that she was almost touching him. What disturbed Sarah the most was their body language. Nathan was smiling in a way she recognized very well. It was the same smile he gave when they were alone at home, watching a movie or talking about the future. The woman gestured animatedly and at one point placed her hand on his arm in an intimate way. "See," Martha whispered. "I wasn't making it up." Sarah felt her legs go weak. All the doubts she had suppressed over the last few months came flooding back like an avalanche. The late arrivals home that Nathan justified with extra work. The times she tried to call and the phone went straight to voicemail. The weekends he said he needed to travel for work to nearby cities. "Who do you think that woman is?" Sarah murmured, more to herself than to her grandmother. "I don't know, but we're going to find out. Stay here. I'll walk around the outside and try to hear what they're saying. No, Grandma, if they see you... Sweetheart, I'm a 74-year-old woman at a wedding. No one's going to think it's strange that I'm walking around. Before Sarah could protest, Martha had already slipped out the side door that led to the garden. Sarah watched her through the window as her grandmother walked inconspicuously toward the couple, pretending to admire the rose bushes growing along the church wall. That was when something happened that made Sarah's blood run cold. The woman in red moved closer to Nathan and whispered something in his ear. He chuckled softly and for a moment looked like he was about to hug her. But then he saw her. Sarah's grandmother was approaching. Nathan quickly stepped away from the woman, straightened his tie, and assumed a more formal posture. He said a few words to the woman, who immediately turned and walked in the opposite direction, quickly leaving the garden through the gate that opened onto the side street. Martha reached Nathan with a forced smile. "Hi, Nathan. So much excitement, right? The big day is here." "Hi, Mrs. Martha." Nathan genuinely looked nervous now. "Yeah, I'm a little anxious. Shouldn't you be helping Sarah get ready?" "I was, but I came to get some water for her. She's very nervous, poor thing." Martha paused deliberately. "I saw you were talking to someone out here, a very pretty young woman in a red dress. A relative of yours?" Nathan hesitated before answering, and that hesitation did not go unnoticed by Martha. She was an old co-worker. She stopped by to say hello." "What a coincidence, right? Showing up just today on your wedding day." "Yeah. It was a surprise, really." Sarah watched the conversation through the window, trying to read lips and interpret expressions. She couldn't hear what they were saying, but Nathan's body language was clearly defensive. He looked around, avoided direct eye contact with the grandmother, and ran his hands through his hair, a nervous tic Sarah knew very well. Martha returned a few minutes later, finding her granddaughter still glued to the window. "So?" "He said she was an old co-worker who stopped by to say hello." "And do you believe that?" Martha sighed and took her granddaughter's hands. "Sweetheart, in 74 years of life I've learned that when a man lies, he either gives too many explanations or too few." And Nathan gave too few. "But Grandma, maybe it's true. Maybe he was just being polite to her." "Maybe, sweetheart. But did you see how they were talking? That wasn't a conversation between co-workers." Sarah closed her eyes and tried to think clearly. In 2 hours, she would be walking down the center aisle of the church, with all eyes on her. Her best friends had come all the way from Atlanta just for the ceremony. Nathan's parents had spent a fortune on the wedding reception that would take place at the family estate, on the outskirts of the city. But above all, she loved Nathan. She had planned an entire lifetime beside him. They had talked about having children, about buying a bigger house, about growing old together. Could it be that none of it was anything more than an illusion? "Grandma, I don't know what to do. If I confront him now and I'm wrong, I could ruin our wedding before it even begins." "And if you don't confront him and you're right?" Mrs. Martha always had an answer for everything. A sound of voices coming from the main aisle of the church indicated that the guests were arriving. Sarah could hear the greetings, the laughter, the typical buzz of a wedding. Her maid of honor, Rachel, would soon be looking for her to help with the final preparations. "Grandma, I'm going to talk to him before the ceremony. I need to know the truth." "Are you sure, sweetheart?" "I am. Better to find out now than to live with this doubt forever." Mrs. Martha nodded in approval. She had always admired her granddaughter's courage, a trait Sarah had inherited from her late mother, Mary, who had passed away when Sarah was only 16 due to complications from pneumonia. Ever since then, Mrs. Martha had taken on the role of both mother and grandmother, raising Sarah with plenty of love and discipline. "Then let's go. But you'll talk to him in the groom's room, away from prying eyes." The two walked through the hallways of the church, toward the room that had been prepared for Nathan. Sarah felt her legs trembling, but her determination grew with every step. She needed answers before promising to love, honor, and cherish that man until death did them part. When they reached the door to Nathan's room, Mrs. Martha knocked softly. "Nathan, it's Mrs. Martha. Sarah needs to talk to you for a minute." There was a moment of silence on the other side of the door before Nathan's voice replied, "But isn't it bad luck to see the bride before the ceremony?" "Sometimes the bad luck is even greater when people don't talk, son." The door opened and Nathan appeared, visibly nervous. He had taken off his jacket and his white shirt had small sweat stains under the arms. His hair, normally perfectly styled, was slightly disheveled. "Hey, babe. Did something happen?" Sarah took a deep breath before answering. "Nathan, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest with me." "Of course. Go ahead." "Who was the woman in the red dress you were talking to in the garden?" Nathan's face visibly went pale. He glanced quickly at Mrs. Martha and then back at Sarah. "I already told your grandmother. She was an old co-worker." "Which co-worker? What's her name? From what company?" Sarah's questions were direct, and she kept eye contact with him, a technique she had learned in the negotiation courses during college. When someone is lying, they usually avoid direct eye contact. "Her name is Vanessa. We used to work together at the accounting firm before I moved to my current one. And why was she whispering in your ear?" She was telling me a joke. You know how it is. She didn't want anyone to hear because it was kind of inappropriate." Mrs. Martha and Sarah exchanged glances. The story wasn't convincing. "Nathan, can you look me in the eyes and swear you're not hiding anything from me?" He hesitated for a split second, just enough time for Sarah to realize something was wrong. "Of course I'm not hiding anything. Sarah, you're nervous, it's normal, but in an hour we'll be married, and all of this will seem silly." "Then why did you get so nervous when you saw my grandmother approaching?" "I wasn't nervous." "You did, Nathan. You did." "You stepped away from her quickly and she ran off." The groom ran a hand through his hair, confirming his nervous state. "Sarah, please. You're making a mountain out of a molehill." It was just an old colleague being polite, but Sarah wasn't convinced. There was something in his voice, in the way he avoided her gaze, that suggested the story wasn't complete. "Fine, Nathan. Let's pretend I believe you. But if I find out you're lying, you won't find out. Because I'm not lying." At that moment, Rachel appeared in the hallway, out of breath. "Sarah, you scared me. I've been looking for you for half an hour. The guests are all seated. The priest is waiting. You need to finish getting ready." "I'm coming, Rachel." Sarah looked one last time at Nathan. He seemed more nervous than any groom should be on his own wedding day. "See you at the altar, Nathan." "I love you, Sarah." She didn't reply. "I love you too," as she had automatically for 3 years. She simply nodded and followed Rachel back to the bride's room. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. Back in the room, Rachel began putting the finishing touches on Sarah's makeup, while Martha adjusted the veil. But the atmosphere was tense, and the 3 women knew it. "Sarah, you're pale. Did something happen?" asked Rachel, who had known her friend since their teenage years. "It's just nerves, Rachel." "No, it's not." Martha decided not to hide the situation. "Rachel, do you know any Vanessa who worked with Nathan?" "Vanessa? Not that I remember." "Why?" Sarah quickly told her what had happened. Rachel listened in silence, with an increasingly worried expression. "Sarah, I've known Nathan for 4 years, ever since you started dating. I've never heard him mention any Vanessa. And another thing, he's always been kind of jealous of you, right? He's not the type of guy who has intimate conversations with other women. What are you trying to say?" "I'm saying that if he was really talking that way to a woman on his own wedding day, either she's very close family or she's someone very important in his life." Rachel's comment landed like a bomb in the room. Sarah felt her stomach churn again. "But he swore she was just a co-worker." "My dear," Martha intervened, "a man who's hiding something always swears more than he should." Rachel finished touching up Sarah's lipstick and took a step back to admire the result. "You look beautiful, Sarah. But you have the face of someone going to a funeral, not her own wedding. It's just that I can't stop thinking about that woman. Who was she? What did she want? Why did she show up today of all days?" Maybe we should look into it a little more before the ceremony, Rachel suggested. How? I can take a walk around the church courtyard, see if she's still nearby. Or ask Nathan's family if they know her. No, Rachel. If you start asking questions, the whole story will spread. In a small town like Savannah, everyone will know within minutes. Martha, who had remained silent, finally spoke. I have a better idea. I'll talk to Mrs. Susan. Susan was the church sacristan, a 68-year-old woman who knew all the town's secrets. If a strange woman had appeared at the church on a wedding day, she certainly would have noticed. Good idea, Grandma. Meanwhile, I'll try to calm down and decide what to do. Martha went off in search of Susan, while Rachel tried to distract Sarah with talk about the honeymoon in Key West that the couple had planned. But it was impossible to get the image of Nathan laughing with that mysterious woman out of her head. 10 minutes later, Martha came back with a grave expression. So, Grandma. Mrs. Susan did see the woman. She said she arrived by car, a silver executive sedan, about an hour ago. She didn't go into the church, she stayed outside waiting. When Nathan came out to take a walk around the garden, she approached him. She was waiting for him? Sarah felt her heart race. It seems so. And there's more. Mrs. Susan said the woman looked nervous, pacing back and forth as if she were rehearsing what she was going to say. That's not the behavior of someone who just came to greet an old acquaintance, Rachel concluded. Sarah sat down heavily on the padded chair in the room. Her hands were trembling as she tried to process the information. Grandma, I don't know if I can do this. What if he's lying? What if there's another woman? Sweetheart, do you really want to get married without knowing the truth? Before Sarah could answer, they heard the first notes of the church organ. The ceremony was about to begin. Sarah, you need to decide right now, Rachel said gently. Either you go out there and get married, trusting that Nathan is being honest, or you postpone everything until you can find out who that woman was. I can't postpone. There are 150 people out there. The reception is paid for. The photographer... That doesn't matter, sweetheart. Martha held her granddaughter's face with both hands. What matters is that you don't make a mistake that could affect the rest of your life. Sarah closed her eyes and tried to listen to her heart. She loved Nathan, but the suspicion had planted a seed of doubt that was growing quickly. How could she promise fidelity and eternal love to someone she didn't fully trust? All right, I'll get married, but I'm going to find out who that woman was. If Nathan is lying, he'll have to deal with the consequences later. Are you sure? Rachel asked. I am. I can't let suspicion destroy 3 years of relationship without being absolutely certain. Martha didn't seem fully convinced, but she respected her granddaughter's decision. Then let's go. But promise me you'll investigate this after the ceremony? I promise, Grandma. Rachel helped Sarah stand up and adjusted the veil one last time. Outside, the organ was playing the wedding march and the guests were standing, waiting for the bride's entrance. You look beautiful, friend. Whatever the truth is, you'll get through this. Thank you, Rachel, for your friendship and for being here with me. The 3 women made their way to the main entrance of the church. Sarah's father, David, was waiting to walk her down the aisle. He was a simple man, owner of a small hardware store in town, and was visibly emotional. My daughter, you look more beautiful than your mother did on the day we got married. Thank you, Dad. David offered his arm to Sarah, and they positioned themselves at the church entrance. Through the carved wooden doors, she could see Nathan at the altar, waiting with a smile that seemed forced. Father James, who had known her since she was a little girl, gestured for her to begin the walk. The wedding march echoed through the centuries-old walls of the church as Sarah walked slowly down the center aisle. The guests were smiling, and some were wiping away tears of emotion. Everything seemed perfect, but she felt as if she were playing a role in a theater play. When she reached the altar, David kissed her forehead and handed her over to Nathan. Take good care of my daughter, he whispered to his son-in-law. You can count on it, Mr. David. She's the most important thing in my life. Nathan held Sarah's hands and smiled. For a moment, looking into his eyes, she almost managed to forget the woman in the red dress. Almost. Father James began the ceremony with the traditional words about the sacrament of marriage. Sarah tried to concentrate, but her eyes wandered across the guests' faces, searching for any sign of the mysterious woman. That was when she saw her. Seated in the last row, on the left side of the church, was the woman in the red dress. She had entered discreetly and chosen a spot that was barely visible, but her eyes were fixed on Nathan. Sarah's heart raced. The woman wasn't an old co-worker who had shown up to greet him. She was someone who had bought a ticket to watch the wedding, someone who wanted to be present at that specific moment. Sarah squeezed Nathan's hands, trying to get his attention without being obvious. When he looked at her, she made a subtle motion with her eyes toward the back of the church. Nathan followed her gaze, and when he saw the woman, his expression changed completely. The smile vanished, and he turned visibly pale. His hands, which were holding Sarah's, began to sweat. The priest kept talking about love, fidelity, and companionship, but both the bride and the groom were completely distracted. The woman in the red dress never took her eyes off Nathan, and her presence there was like a dark cloud over the ceremony. "Now, Nathan Brooks, do you accept Sarah Mitchell as your lawful wife, promising to love her, respect her, and be faithful to her in joy and in sorrow, in health and in sickness, all the days of your life?" Nathan hesitated. The hesitation was brief, but Sarah noticed. All the guests noticed. I do. And you, Sarah Mitchell, do you accept Nathan Brooks as your lawful husband, promising to love him, respect him, and be faithful to him in joy and in sorrow, in health and in sickness, all the days of your life? Sarah looked into Nathan's eyes, then quickly glanced at the woman in the red dress, and finally looked back at the man who was about to become her husband. "I do." The words came out automatically, but her heart was full of doubt. The priest proceeded with the exchange of rings. Nathan placed the white gold ring on Sarah's finger with hands that trembled slightly. When it was her turn, Sarah noticed that the groom's hands were cold and sweaty at the same time. "I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Nathan leaned in to kiss Sarah, but she noticed that his eyes quickly darted toward the back of the church before their lips met. The kiss was brief and formal, very different from the passionate kisses they used to share. The guests applauded, and the organ played the recessional march. The couple walked back down the center aisle of the church, greeting family and friends. But when they reached the back of the church, the woman in the red dress had disappeared. Outside the church, the traditional shower of rice and rose petals began. Photographers took hundreds of pictures as guests lined up to congratulate the couple, but Sarah could barely focus on the congratulations and hugs. Martha approached her during the family photo session. "She was there, Grandma. The woman in the red dress was watching the ceremony." "I saw, my dear, and I also saw how Nathan looked when he saw her." "What do you think it means?" "I think our investigation isn't over. Someone who comes to watch a person's wedding isn't just an old co-worker." While they talked discreetly, Nathan was on the other side of the courtyard, surrounded by friends and family. But Sarah noticed that he kept looking toward the street, as if he were searching for someone or waiting for someone to appear. The wedding reception would be at the Brooks family estate, about 15 kilometers from the city. All the guests would follow in a motorcade to get there, but before that, there would be another hour of photos and greetings in the church courtyard. "Rachel," Sarah called to the maid of honor, "can you do me a favor? Of course, anything. Can you take a walk around the block and see if that woman in the red dress is still nearby? Maybe in her car." "I'll take a discreet look." Rachel stepped away while Sarah continued posing for photos with forced smiles. Nathan was more relaxed now that the woman had left the church, but he still looked worried. 10 minutes later, Rachel came back with a serious expression. "I found her car. A silver executive sedan, just like your grandma said. She's inside on the phone. Sounds like she's arguing with someone." "Did you manage to hear anything?" "Not much, but I heard her say something like, 'He can't just ignore what happened, and this is going to end badly if he keeps pretending.'" Rachel's words hit Sarah like a punch to the gut. This wasn't a conversation about work or a casual greeting. It was about something serious, something that directly involved Nathan. "Where exactly is the car?" "2 blocks from here, on the street behind the pharmacy." Sarah looked around. Nathan was talking with the best man, his cousin Michael Brooks, and seemed distracted. His parents were busy organizing the motorcade to the ranch. It was the perfect opportunity. "Grandma Rachel, come with me. We're going to have a conversation with that woman." "Sarah, are you sure?" asked Martha. "Maybe it's better to wait and talk to Nathan first." "No, Grandma. I tried talking to him and he lied. Now I want to hear her side of the story." "And what if it's something you don't want to know?" "Then at least I'll know the truth. That's better than living a lie." The three women walked discreetly through the cobblestone streets of Savannah's historic district. Sarah's wedding dress drew the attention of the few passers-by, but she didn't care. She needed answers. When they reached the street Rachel had pointed out, they found the silver executive sedan parked under a tree. The woman in the red dress was still on the phone, but when she saw Sarah approaching, she quickly ended the call. For a moment, the two women stared at each other through the car window. The brunette looked surprised but not scared. It was as if she had been expecting this encounter. She got out of the car slowly. Up close, Sarah could see that she was truly beautiful, around 30 years old, with long, wavy hair and expressive brown eyes. There was something familiar about her face, but Sarah couldn't quite place it. "You must be Sarah," the woman said in a soft but firm voice. "And you must be Vanessa, the former co-worker," Sarah replied with irony. The woman smiled sadly. "No, my name isn't Vanessa. It's Chloe. Chloe Sterling." "And who are you, Chloe Sterling? What do you want with my husband?" Chloe looked at Martha and Rachel, then turned her attention back to Sarah. "Maybe it's better if we talk in private." "No, they're my family. Whatever you have to say, you can say it in front of them." Chloe took a deep breath as if preparing herself for a difficult revelation. "Fine. I dated Nathan for 2 years. We broke up 6 months ago." Sarah's world seemed to stop. 6 months ago was exactly when Nathan had started becoming more distant, when the business trips increased, when he started coming home late. "That's a lie," Sarah whispered. 6 months ago, Nathan proposed to me." "He proposed to you, yes, but he didn't end things with me. We kept seeing each other in secret." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out and now continuing. Sarah felt her legs go weak. Martha grabbed her arm to keep her from falling. "You're lying. Why should I believe you?" Chloe opened her purse and took out her phone. "Because I have proof." She showed the phone screen to Sarah. There were dozens of messages exchanged with Nathan over the past few months. Tender, intimate messages that left no doubt about their relationship. "I miss you, love," a message from Nathan from the week before. "When are we going to see each other again?" Chloe, 3 days ago. "After the wedding, everything will be easier." Nathan, 2 days ago. Sarah read the messages with growing horror. They weren't just messages of friendship. They were messages from 2 lovers carrying on a secret relationship. "Why are you showing me this?" Sarah asked, her voice breaking. "Because you have the right to know. And because I'm tired of being the other woman." "The other woman?" "Sarah, Nathan told me he was going to end the engagement 3 months ago. He said he was in love with me and wanted to be with me, but he always came up with an excuse to put it off." "And you believed him?" "I wanted to believe him. I was in love with him. But when I saw that he was actually going to get married, I decided you needed to know the truth." Rachel, who had remained silent, finally spoke up. "How did you two meet?" "I work at the same company as he does. We're both in the human resources department. We started out as friends and then it happened." "And why didn't you tell Sarah before?" "Because he always said he was going to tell her, that he was going to end the engagement and go public with our relationship. I believed him until yesterday." "What happened yesterday?" Chloe began to cry. "Yesterday he told me he couldn't leave Sarah, that he had already invested too much in the relationship, that the families were involved, that canceling the wedding would be too complicated. He told me that once he was married, we could keep seeing each other discreetly." Sarah felt a rage she had never experienced before. Nathan hadn't just betrayed her, he had deceived both of them. "And you accepted that?" "No, That's when I decided to come here today. He needed to choose between the two of us, and you needed to know who the man you were marrying really is." Martha, who had observed the entire conversation in silence, finally intervened. "Chloe, do you have any more proof of what you're saying?" "I do." Chloe went back to her phone. "I have pictures of the two of us together, receipts from the hotels we stayed at, and voice messages he sent me." She showed a few photos. Nathan and Chloe embracing at a restaurant, kissing in a park, walking into a hotel together. The dates on the photos confirmed that the encounters had happened throughout Sarah's engagement. "Oh my God," Rachel murmured. "Sarah, I'm so sorry." Sarah was in a state of shock. 3 years of relationship, months of wedding planning, dreams of a life together, all of it had crumbled in a matter of minutes. "Why did he do this to me? We were happy. At least I thought we were." Chloe wiped away her tears. "Sarah, I don't know. Maybe he was confused. Maybe he didn't know how to handle the situation. But it wasn't fair to either of us." "And now? What do you expect to happen?" "I just wanted the truth to come out. I'm tired of being an accomplice to a lie." At that moment, Rachel's phone rang. It was Michael Brooks, Nathan's best man. "Rachel, where are you guys? Nathan is asking for Sarah. The caravan to the reception is ready to leave." "We're coming, Michael. 10 minutes." Sarah looked at Chloe one last time. "Are you going to the reception?" "It wasn't part of my plans. I only came here to talk to you." "Then leave. I need to decide what to do with this information." "Sarah," Chloe gently touched the bride's arm. "I know you hate me right now, and I understand, but I really am sorry. Neither of us deserved this." Chloe got in the car and drove off, leaving Sarah standing on the sidewalk, still dressed as a bride, with her world crumbling around her. "What now, my dear?" Martha asked gently. "Martha, now I'm going back in there and pretending everything is fine until I decide what to do." "Sarah, you can't pretend you don't know anything." "Yes, I can, Grandma. At least until this farce is over. 200 people came here for my wedding party. I'm not going to ruin everyone's day because of Nathan's lies. But you can't stay married to him knowing this." "I know, Grandma. But I need time to think, to decide how I'm going to handle all of this." Rachel hugged her friend. "Whatever you decide, I'll be by your side." "Thank you, Rachel. You two are all I have right now." The 3 women went back into the church, where Nathan and the other guests were waiting impatiently for the motorcade. When Nathan saw Sarah, he ran toward her. "Baby, where were you? We were looking for you." "I was talking to some friends of my mother's who came for the wedding." The lie came out naturally, as if Sarah were learning to lie with the same ease as Nathan. "Are you okay? You look a little down." "It's just the exhaustion. It's been a long day." Nathan kissed her forehead tenderly, a gesture that used to make her happy and now made her feel sick. "Soon we'll be at the estate and you can relax." "Yes, I can't wait." The motorcade made its way along the rural roads of Savannah toward the Brooks family estate. Sarah and Nathan rode in a decorated car, waving at people who stopped to watch the wedding procession pass by. But Sarah's heart was broken, and her mind was working furiously, trying to decide what her next step would be. The estate was beautiful. Yellow lights hung from the trees, creating a magical atmosphere. Round tables were spread across the lawn, each one decorated with wildflower arrangements. A stage had been set up for the local band that would play during the party. During the reception cocktail hour, Sarah tried to keep up appearances. She smiled at the well-wishers, thanked them for their gifts, and chatted with the guests as if she were the happiest bride in the world. But inside, she felt empty and betrayed. Nathan, for his part, seemed more relaxed now that Chloe was gone. He talked animatedly with friends, played with the children there, and acted like the perfect loving husband. During dinner, Nathan's father gave an emotional speech about the couple. "Sarah and Nathan are an example of true love. May they be happy for many, many years to come." Everyone applauded and raised their glasses in a toast. Sarah lifted her champagne glass but could barely take a sip. How could she toast a true love she had discovered to be a farce? Martha approached her during a break between the speeches. How are you holding up, my dear? I don't know, Grandma. It's like I'm living a nightmare and can't wake up. Have you decided what you're going to do? Not yet. I need to process all of this first. Whatever you decide, know that I'll be by your side. The party went on with music and dancing. Nathan invited Sarah for the couple's first dance, and they danced in the center of the makeshift dance floor while the guests formed a circle around them. The song was Can't Help Falling in Love by Elvis Presley, the same song that had been playing when they first kissed. Dancing in Nathan's arms, Sarah remembered all the happy moments they had shared. The weekend trips, the plans for the future, the laughter late into the night. Could it be that none of it had meant anything to him? "What are you thinking about?" Nathan asked, noticing her distant expression. "I'm just trying to take it all in. It's a lot of emotion for one day. I love you so much, Sarah. Thank you for agreeing to be my wife." His words hurt her deeply. How could he say he loved her, knowing he had lied to her for months? "I love you too, Nathan." The lie came out automatically, but she realized it was no longer true. The love she had felt for him had been destroyed by Chloe's revelations. The party continued into the early hours of the morning. The guests gradually left, leaving the couple and their closest families behind. Sarah was exhausted, physically and emotionally. Nathan approached her as the last guests were leaving. "Honey, shall we head home? I want to start our honeymoon." The idea of spending an intimate night with Nathan disgusted her. How could she be intimate with someone she no longer trusted? "Nathan, I'm really tired. We can go home, but I need a night to recharge." "Of course, honey, you must be exhausted." They said goodbye to their families and headed to the apartment they had recently rented in Atlanta. During the drive, Nathan talked excitedly about the party, the greetings they received, and the plans for the next few days. Sarah just nodded, lost in her own thoughts. When they arrived at the apartment, Nathan carried Sarah through the doorway following tradition. But the romantic gesture now seemed forced and fake. "I'm going to take a shower and change," Sarah said. "It was a very long day." "Of course, honey. I'll get things organized here." In the bathroom, Sarah finally allowed herself to cry. The tears she had held back during the entire party came out in a torrent of pain and disappointment. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw a woman she didn't recognize. Someone who had been deceived, betrayed, made a fool of. When she came out of the shower, she found Nathan already in bed, waiting for her with an expectant expression. "Sarah, I know it was a tiring day, but—" "Nathan, I really need to sleep. We'll talk tomorrow." He seemed disappointed, but didn't insist. "All right, honey. Good night." Sarah lay down on the farthest side of the bed, turning her back to Nathan. She stayed awake for hours, listening to his breathing as he slept deeply. How could he sleep so peacefully after what he had done? The next morning, Nathan woke up early and made breakfast. When Sarah came down to the kitchen, he greeted her with a wide smile and a kiss on the cheek. "Good morning, my wife. How did you sleep?" "Fine, thank you. I made your favorite coffee and scrambled eggs the way you like them." His kindness irritated her. He was trying to be the perfect husband, but Sarah knew it was all a sham. "Nathan, we need to talk." "Sure, about what?" "About yesterday, about what happened at the church." Nathan's face changed slightly. "What happened at the church? I don't understand." "The woman in the red dress, Chloe." Nathan visibly paled. "I already explained who she was." "Yes, you said she was an old work colleague named Vanessa. But I found out her name is Chloe Sterling, and she works at the same company as you, in the Human Resources Department." Nathan was silent for a long moment. "Sarah, And I also found out that you two dated for 2 years and only broke up 6 months ago, coincidentally around the same time you proposed to me." "Who told you that?" "She did. We talked yesterday after the ceremony." Nathan sat down heavily in the kitchen chair. "Sarah, I can explain." "Explain what?" "How you deceived me for months, how you kept a parallel relationship while we were planning our wedding." "It wasn't like that." "It wasn't like what?" "She showed me the messages, Nathan. Loving messages you two exchanged until this week. Photos of the two of you together throughout our entire engagement." Nathan ran his hands through his hair, a gesture Sarah now recognized as a sign of desperation. "Sarah, please, let me explain everything." "Fine. Explain." "I have the rest of my life to listen to your excuses." Nathan took a deep breath before starting. "It's true that I dated Chloe, but when we broke up I thought it was for good. Then when I started getting more serious with you, she came back wanting to reconcile, and you got back together with her. That's not how it happened. At first I only talked to her as a friend. She was going through a tough time. She had just been promoted at work and was stressed. I was trying to help. Help by texting her sweetly and meeting her at hotels? Sarah, I know it looks bad, but... Looks bad? Nathan, this is betrayal. You cheated on me during our entire engagement. I never meant to hurt you. I truly love you. If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this." Nathan stood up and tried to get closer to Sarah, but she backed away. "Sarah, please, let's try to work this out. I can break things off with Chloe for good. We can go to couples therapy." "Work this out? Nathan, do you think this is something that can be worked out? You lied to me for months. How you made a fool of me. I know I messed up, but there's no but. You cheated on me, you lied, and you still had the nerve to marry me knowing all of this." Sarah was crying now, all the anger and pain she had held in all night bursting out at once. "And the worst part is that you cheated on her too. You promised you'd break up with me and marry her, but that was a lie as well." "Sarah, we were both your victims, Nathan. Two women who believed in you and were deceived." Nathan tried once more to get closer, but Sarah pushed him away. "Don't touch me. I don't want you anywhere near me." "Sarah, what do you want me to do? I'll break up with her today. I promise I'll never talk to her again. Let's start over, just the two of us." "Start over? How can I start over with someone I no longer trust?" "You can learn to trust me again. I'll prove I've changed." "How, Nathan? How are you going to prove it? With more lies?" The argument went on for over an hour. Nathan tried to justify his actions, promised to change, begged for a second chance. But Sarah felt that something inside her had been broken beyond repair. Finally, she made a decision. "Nathan, I can't stay here anymore. I'm going to my grandma's house for a few days to think." "No, Sarah, let's work this out together." "There's nothing to work out. I need time to decide what to do with all of this. And our marriage? The honeymoon in Key West?" "The marriage was a sham from the start, Nathan. And as for the honeymoon, cancel it. I'm not going anywhere with you." Sarah went upstairs to the bedroom and started packing a bag with some clothes. Nathan followed her, trying to talk her out of it. "Sarah, please don't leave. We can fix this." "I've already decided, Nathan. I can't trust you anymore." "But I love you." Sarah stopped packing and looked at him. "If you loved me, you would never have done what you did. True love doesn't cheat, doesn't lie, doesn't deceive. Everyone makes mistakes. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk at the store, Nathan. What you did was a conscious choice, repeated over and over, for months." She finished packing and walked toward the door. "Sarah, if you walk out that door right now, I don't know if we can go back." "Good, because I don't want to go back." Sarah left the apartment and drove straight to Mrs. Martha's house in Savannah. During the hour-long drive, she cried profusely, but she also felt a strange sense of relief. She had finally made a decision. When she arrived at her grandmother's house, Martha greeted her with a warm hug. "I was already expecting you, my dear. You knew I was coming. Knowing you as I do, I knew you wouldn't be able to pretend you knew nothing for very long." Sarah told her grandmother everything that had happened, the conversation with Chloe, the terrible night, the argument that morning. "And now, Grandma, what do I do? Now you rest, you recover, and then you calmly decide what the best path forward is. But what about the wedding? What if people ask questions? People are going to talk no matter what, my dear. What matters is that you're at peace with your decisions." Sarah spent the next few days at her grandmother's house, trying to process everything that had happened. Nathan called constantly, sent messages, even showed up at the door a few times. But Mrs. Martha was firm in telling him that Sarah didn't want to talk to him. Rachel visited every day, offering support and friendship. It was she who brought the latest news. "Sarah, did you hear that Chloe asked for a transfer to the company's branch in Chicago?" "No, I hadn't heard that. I also heard that Nathan is telling everyone you two are going through a temporary marital rough patch, but that things will work themselves out soon. He just can't accept that it's over, can he? It doesn't seem like it. But Sarah, are you sure about your decision? I am, Rachel. I couldn't live with someone I don't trust. It would be torture for both of us. A week after the conversation with Chloe, Sarah gathered the courage to do something she had been putting off. She went back to the apartment in Atlanta to pick up the rest of her things. Nathan was there, waiting for her. Sarah, I'm so glad you came. I've missed you. I only came to get my clothes and some personal belongings. Don't you want to talk? I have a proposal for you. What proposal? I found a therapist who specializes in couples. We can start going to therapy together, rebuild our trust. Nathan, stop. I've already made my decision. What decision? I want a divorce. The words hit Nathan like a physical blow. He leaned against the wall as if he'd been punched. Divorce? But we just got married. We got married based on lies. That's not a real marriage. Sarah, for God's sake. Every couple goes through rough patches. This isn't a rough patch, Nathan. It's the end. You destroyed any possibility of trust between us. What if I can prove that I've changed? How? Are you going to erase the last 6 months? Can you undo all the lies? Nathan started to cry, something Sarah had rarely seen him do. I messed up, Sarah. I messed up badly, but I can't live without you. You should have thought about that before you cheated on me. And about Chloe. I already talked to her. We're done for good. She even accepted the transfer to Chicago just to get away from me. That doesn't change anything, Nathan. The problem isn't Chloe. The problem is you. Your inability to be honest with me. I can learn to be more honest. Honesty isn't something you learn, Nathan. It's something you are. Sarah finished packing her things and walked toward the door for the second time in a week. Sarah, wait. At least give me a chance to try to win back your trust. She stopped at the door and turned to him one last time. Nathan, do you know what your biggest mistake was? It wasn't cheating on me. It was underestimating me. You thought I'd never find out, or that if I did, I'd be too weak to end things, but you were wrong. I can live without you, but I can't live in a lie. I love you. If you loved me, you would have ended things with Chloe before you proposed. If you loved me, you would have been honest with me from the start. True love doesn't coexist with betrayal. Sarah left the apartment, and this time she didn't look back. In the following months, the divorce proceedings moved quickly. Since there were no assets to divide and no children involved, Nathan tried a few times to reconcile, even sent flowers and letters. But Sarah was unwavering in her decision. The small town of Savannah talked a lot about the divorce of the bride who lasted a week, as some mean-spirited people put it. But Martha always defended her granddaughter when she heard disrespectful comments. My granddaughter had the courage to choose the truth instead of living a lie. That's not failure, that's wisdom. 6 months after the failed wedding, Sarah was rebuilding her life. She landed a job at a marketing firm in Atlanta and moved into a small apartment, but one that was all her own. On a Saturday afternoon, while having coffee with Martha and Rachel, her grandmother made a remark that made her reflect. You know, Sarah, I think you were lucky. Lucky? How so, Grandma? Lucky because you found out the truth before having kids with him, before buying a house together, before tangling your lives up even more. Imagine if you'd found all this out 5 years from now. Sarah considered her grandmother's words. It was true. As painful as it had been, discovering Nathan's betrayal so early had spared her years of suffering and future complications. You're right, Grandma. It was better this way. And another thing, Martha continued. You learned a valuable lesson about the importance of trust in a relationship. When you find someone real, you'll know to value honesty. If I find someone, Grandma, you will, my dear. A brave and honest woman like you won't be alone forever. Rachel agreed. And when you do find someone, it'll be with someone who deserves your love, someone who isn't capable of lying and betraying. 1 year after the wedding that lasted only a day, Sarah received an unexpected phone call. It was Chloe. Sarah, it's Chloe. I hope you don't mind that I got your number from a mutual friend. Hi, Chloe. No, I don't mind. How are you? I'm good. Living in Chicago, working at the company's branch office here. I wanted to call you to apologize. Apologize for what? For everything. For getting involved with Nathan knowing he was engaged. For contributing to the lie, for destroying your wedding. Chloe, you didn't destroy my wedding. Nathan did that all on his own. You were deceived just as much as I was. Even so, I feel guilty. I should have told you the truth much sooner. Maybe. But what matters is that you did. If it hadn't been for you, I might have found out the truth years later, when it would have been so much more painful. Thank you for not hating me. I don't hate you, Chloe. At first I did, I admit, but later I understood that we were both victims of his lies. And how are you doing now? Good. Much better than I expected. And you? I'm doing well too. I met someone here in Chicago. An honest man, divorced, who isn't afraid to tell the truth. That's great. I'm happy for you. And you? Are you seeing anyone? Not yet. I'm focusing on myself for now. But when the time is right, it'll happen. I'm sure it will. You deserve to be happy, Sarah. You deserve it too, Chloe. After she hung up, Sarah reflected on how life takes unexpected turns. A year ago, Chloe was the other woman who had destroyed her dreams. Now, she saw her as a companion in misfortune who'd had the courage to tell the truth when it mattered most. 2 years after the failed wedding, Sarah was at a bookstore in downtown Atlanta when she bumped into someone familiar. It was Michael, Nathan's cousin, who'd been the best man at the wedding. Sarah, what a surprise running into you here. Hi, Michael. How are you? Good, thanks. And you? You look like you're doing great. I am doing well. Very well, actually. Michael hesitated before asking, Did you hear that Nathan moved to Miami? No, I didn't know that. And to be honest, I'm not interested in knowing about his life. I understand. It's just, well, he's been asking about you to our mutual friends. He wanted to know how you were doing. You can tell him that I'm doing very well and that I've moved on. And I hope he's learned to be more honest with the people he claims to love. Sarah, I know it's none of my business, but I always knew Nathan was wrong. I tried to talk to him several times, but he wouldn't listen. Did you know about Chloe? I did, and I felt awful for knowing. I even threatened to tell you myself if he didn't. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't think it was my place, that he should have the courage to tell the truth. But now I regret not saying anything. Michael, you did what you thought was right at the time. What matters is that the truth came out. Even so, I feel guilty for being complicit in the silence. Don't. The only guilty party in this story is Nathan. They talked for a few more minutes before saying goodbye. Sarah sat there thinking about how many people had known about Nathan's betrayal, and no one had had the courage to tell her. It was a lesson about how silence can be just as harmful as lying. 3 years after that wedding that changed her life, Sarah was having dinner at an Italian restaurant in the Buckhead neighborhood when someone approached her table. Excuse me, aren't you Sarah Mitchell? She looked up and saw a man around 35 years old, tall, wearing glasses, with a gentle smile. Yes, I am. And you are? Lucas James. I'm a dentist here in Atlanta. Your grandmother, Mrs. Martha, is a patient of mine. She's always talking about you. Oh, yes. She mentioned the new dentist who's very kind. May I sit for a minute? I promise I won't bother you for long. Of course, please sit. Lucas sat down and smiled shyly. Mrs. Martha always tells me stories about you. She says you're a very brave and principled woman. My grandmother is biased when it comes to me. Actually, she told me about your marriage, about what happened. And I wanted to tell you that I really admire your courage. Thank you, but I didn't do anything extraordinary. I just chose not to live a lie. For many people, that would be extraordinary. How many people stay in unhappy relationships out of fear of what others will think? That's true. But I learned that it's better to be alone and at peace than accompanied and miserable. And now? Are you alone? I am. And you? I am too. I've been divorced for 2 years. My ex-wife, well, there were honesty issues involved as well. I'm sorry. don't be. Discovering the truth was liberating, even though it hurt at the time. They talked for 2 hours. Lucas was intelligent, funny, and there was a sincerity in his eyes that Sarah hadn't seen in a long time. When he invited her to dinner the following week, she accepted. "But I want to make one thing clear from the start," said Sarah. "Honesty is essential to me. If you can't be completely transparent, then maybe we shouldn't even start." "I completely agree. In fact, can I be transparent right now?" "Sure. I asked Mrs. Martha to introduce us 6 months ago. I was waiting for the right opportunity to meet you." Sarah laughed. "My grandmother didn't tell me anything. I asked her not to. I wanted the meeting to feel natural, but now that we've met, I thought it was better to be honest about my intentions." "And what are your intentions?" "To get to know you better, to see if we have any chemistry. And if we do, who knows, maybe start something beautiful and above all honest." For the first time in 3 years, Sarah felt a spark of hope when it came to love. The relationship between Sarah and Lucas developed slowly, built on mutual trust and absolute transparency. They talked about everything: their past experiences, their fears, their expectations. Lucas never hid anything, no matter how small, and Sarah did the same. A year after their first meeting, during dinner at Martha's house, Lucas proposed to Sarah. But it was a different kind of proposal. "Sarah, I love you and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. But before I ask you to marry me, I need you to be absolutely sure of who I am. I want you to talk to my ex-wife, to my friends, to anyone who can give you information about my character." "Lucas, that's not necessary." "Yes, it is. You've already been deceived once by not fully knowing the person you were marrying. I don't want that to happen again." Sarah was moved by his transparency, but she accepted the offer. She talked to Lucas's ex-wife, who confirmed that he was a man of integrity, but that they simply weren't compatible. She talked to friends, co-workers, patients. They all confirmed what she already knew. Lucas was an honest and trustworthy person. 6 months later, Sarah and Lucas were married in a simple ceremony at the same church where she had married Nathan 4 years earlier. But this time there were no doubts, no secrets, no lies, no... Martha, at 78 years old, was radiant seeing her granddaughter truly happy. "Now this is it, sweetheart. This is a real marriage." During the reception, small but full of genuine joy, Sarah reflected on the past few years. Nathan's betrayal had been painful, but it had taught her valuable lessons about love, trust, and self-worth. Chloe sent a congratulatory card from Chicago, where she was now married to the honest man she had met. "Thank you for showing me that we all deserve someone who loves us without lies," the card read. Nathan also found out about Sarah's new marriage through mutual friends. He tried to reach out to congratulate her, but Sarah didn't return the call. That chapter of her life was definitively closed. 5 years after the wedding that lasted just 1 day, Sarah was pregnant with her first child with Lucas. During a prenatal appointment, the doctor mentioned the importance of honesty between couples during pregnancy. "Many pregnancy complications stem from stress caused by relationship issues," the doctor explained. "Honest and transparent couples tend to have smoother pregnancies." Sarah held Lucas's hand and smiled. She knew she was in the right relationship, with the right person built on the right values. When the baby was born, Martha, at 80 years old, held her great-grandson in her arms, with tears in her eyes. "He's going to grow up seeing an example of true love," said the grandmother. "He'll learn that a good relationship is built on trust and honesty." Sarah agreed. Her son would grow up knowing the difference between true love and appearances. He would learn that it's better to be alone than in bad company. He would learn that honesty is the foundation of any healthy relationship. 10 years after that day that changed her life forever, Sarah was organizing a birthday party for Martha, who was turning 85. The family had grown. Besides their first child, she and Lucas had 2 more children, and they all lived in a spacious house on the outskirts of Atlanta. During the party, Rachel, now godmother to Sarah's 3 children, made a comment that perfectly summed up her friend's journey. "Sarah, remember when you thought your life was over that day at the church? I remember. I thought I'd never be happy again. And look where you are now. 3 beautiful children, a husband who truly loves you, a successful career. It's true, sometimes the bad things that happen are actually redirects toward better things. And what if Chloe hadn't shown up that day? I probably would have found out about Nathan's betrayal later, when it would have been much more complicated to leave the relationship. Maybe I would have had children with him, shared assets. It would have been so much more painful. Martha, sitting in her favorite chair surrounded by her great-grandchildren, overheard the conversation and spoke up. "My dear, that day was one of the worst and one of the best things that ever happened to you." "What do you mean, Grandma?" "It was one of the worst because discovering betrayal is always painful, but it was one of the best because it saved you from a life of lies and led you to true love." Sarah looked at Lucas, who was playing with the children in the garden, and agreed with her grandmother. If she hadn't gone through the pain of Nathan's betrayal, she might never have appreciated Lucas's honesty. "You're always right, Grandma." "It's not that I'm right. It's that with age, we learn to see things from a broader perspective. What seems like a tragedy today can be a blessing tomorrow." That night, after all the guests had left and the children were asleep, Sarah and Lucas walked through the garden of their home. "What are you thinking about?" asked Lucas, noticing his wife's contemplative silence. "I was thinking about how unpredictable life is. 10 years ago I was marrying another man, thinking I knew what my future would be." "And do you regret anything?" "Quite the opposite. I'm grateful that everything happened exactly the way it did. If Nathan hadn't betrayed me, I wouldn't have you, I wouldn't have our children, I wouldn't have this life." "So you thank Nathan?" Lucas teased. "In a way, yes. He taught me that I shouldn't accept less than I deserve. He taught me to value honesty. He prepared me to recognize true love when it came along." "And Chloe?" "I'm grateful to her too. She had the courage to tell the truth when it would have been easier to stay quiet. Many women wouldn't have done that." Lucas hugged Sarah affectionately. "You're an incredible woman. You turned a painful experience into growth and wisdom." "I learned that pain is temporary, but the lessons last forever." They went inside, checked on the children, and lay down. Before falling asleep, Sarah said her prayer of gratitude, as she did every night. "Thank you for giving me the strength to choose truth over lies. Thank you for showing me that I deserved more. Thank you for leading me to true love." The next day, Sarah received an unexpected call. It was a journalist from a women's magazine who had heard her story through a mutual friend and wanted to interview her for an article about women who had the courage to start over after betrayal. "Sarah, your story is inspiring. Many women stay trapped in relationships out of fear of starting over. Could you give some advice?" "Of course. The first piece of advice is trust your intuition. If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't right. The second is don't accept less than you deserve out of fear of being alone. It's better to be alone than in bad company. And the third, the pain of discovering betrayal is temporary, but the consequences of ignoring it can last a lifetime." And for women who are going through similar situations right now, have courage. I know it's hard, it hurts, it's scary, but on the other side of the pain, there's the possibility of a much better life. There's a chance to find someone who truly loves them, without lies, without betrayal. Any specific message for older women who think it's too late to start over? It's never too late to choose happiness. My grandmother always says that where there's life, there's hope. And I add, where there's courage, there's the possibility of change. The interview was published a month later and generated hundreds of comments from women who identified with Sarah's story. Many shared their own experiences of betrayal and overcoming. One of the letters that touched Sarah the most was from a 72-year-old woman who had discovered her husband's betrayal after 45 years of marriage and decided to get a divorce. "Your story gave me the courage to choose my dignity over convenience. At 72, I'm starting my life over and I've never felt so free. Thank you for showing me that it's possible." Sarah personally answered every letter, offering words of encouragement and support. She discovered that her painful experience could help other women find the strength to change their own lives. 15 years after that failed marriage, Sarah was giving lectures at universities about healthy relationships and female self-esteem. Her experience had transformed into a purpose, helping other women recognize their own worth. During a lecture at the university where she had studied, a 20-year-old young woman asked a question that made her reflect. "Professor Sarah, how did you know Marcos was different from Nathan? How could you be sure you weren't making the same mistake again?" Excellent question. The difference was transparency. Marcos never hid anything, no matter how small. If he came home late, he explained why. If he was going to talk to his ex-wife about something, he told me before and after. He understood that after my previous experience, I needed total transparency. But isn't that a little paranoid? No, it's careful. When you've been burned once, it's natural to be more cautious. And a man who truly loves you will understand and respect that need. He'll make a point of being transparent so you feel safe. And what if he complains about the lack of trust? Then he's not the right person. Trust is rebuilt with actions, not words. A man of integrity will demonstrate his trustworthiness through consistent behavior. He won't get offended by having to prove his character. After the lecture, several young women came up to talk individually. Sarah noticed that her story resonated especially with women who were in questionable relationships, but were afraid to end them. One of the students, Sophia, 22, told her that her boyfriend had been seen kissing another girl at a party, but when confronted, he denied everything and said she was being paranoid. "Sophia, let me ask you something. Would you trust this man with your life? If you were sick, would you count on him to take care of you? If you had his child, would you believe he'd be a present and faithful father? Honestly? No. Then you already have your answer. Don't build a life with someone you don't fully trust." "But what if I'm wrong? What if he really didn't kiss her?" "Sophia, if you have doubts, it's because something isn't right. Healthy relationships aren't built on constant doubt. When you find the right person, you won't be questioning their faithfulness." The conversation with Sophia reminded Sarah of herself at 25, when she started dating Nathan and ignored the small signs that something wasn't right. The late arrivals, the vague explanations, the feeling that he was hiding something. That night at home, Sarah talked to Marcos about the lecture. "It's amazing how many young women are living through situations similar to what I went through, signs of infidelity that they ignore or justify. Why do you think that happens? Fear. Fear of being alone, fear of what others will think, fear of being wrong, and also a lack of self-esteem. Many think they don't deserve better." "And how did you learn that you deserved better?" "From my grandma. She always taught me that it's better to be alone and dignified than accompanied and humiliated. That true love doesn't hurt, doesn't deceive, doesn't lie." Marcos held Sarah's hand. "And did you pass that lesson on to our children?" "I try. I always talk to them about the importance of honesty in relationships. I want them to grow up knowing that they should respect and be respected." 20 years after that day that changed everything, Mrs. Martha, at 94, was admitted to the hospital. Her condition was delicate, but she kept the clarity and good humor that had always defined her. Sarah spent her days by her grandmother's bedside, holding her hand and talking about life. "Grandma, I want to thank you for everything you taught me. What did I teach you, sweetheart? That honesty is fundamental, that it's better to face the truth than to live a lie, that self-love matters more than other people's opinions. You learned those things on your own, sweetheart. I just walked beside you." "No, Grandma. If you hadn't warned me about that woman at church, if you hadn't supported me when I discovered the truth, if you hadn't given me the strength to start over, I could have lived years being unhappy. Sweetheart, what happened that day was painful, but it was necessary. Sometimes life breaks us down, so it can rebuild us stronger. You have no idea how many women have told me they were inspired by my story to leave abusive relationships. Then all the suffering was worth it, wasn't it? It was, Grandma, so much." Martha smiled with her eyes shining. "You know what makes me most proud? Seeing that you taught our great-grandchildren to value honesty from a young age. They're going to grow up knowing that a good relationship is transparent, respectful, truthful." "I hope so, Grandma. I'm sure of it. You broke a cycle, sweetheart. Your son won't grow up thinking it's normal for a man to cheat. Your daughters won't grow up thinking they should accept less than they deserve. Martha fell asleep holding her granddaughter's hand. The next morning, she passed away quietly, leaving a legacy of wisdom and courage that would be passed down through generations. At Martha's funeral, hundreds of people paid their respects. Many shared stories about how the woman had influenced their lives with her wise advice and her clear vision of relationships and personal dignity. Rachel, now 55 years old, gave an emotional speech. Mrs. Martha taught me that true friends support one another in difficult times, even when the decision is painful. She supported Sarah's courage when many people criticized her for giving up on her marriage so quickly. But she knew that courage isn't staying in a bad relationship. Courage is having the strength to leave it. After the funeral, Sarah returned home and found a letter that Martha had left for her. My dear granddaughter, if you're reading this letter, it means my journey here has come to an end. But I want you to know that I leave peacefully, knowing that you are a strong, wise, and worthy woman. That day at church, when I watched you discover Nathan's betrayal, my heart broke. But it also swelled with pride. When I saw your courage to choose the truth over convenience, you turned a painful experience into wisdom. You used your pain to help other women. You built a family based on true love. That is what I call victory. Keep being that courageous woman who doesn't accept less than she deserves. Keep teaching other women that they are far too valuable to live in lies. Keep showing your children that healthy relationships exist and are possible. And always remember, you didn't fail in that first marriage. You triumphed by choosing your dignity. With all my love and pride, your grandmother, Martha. Sarah cried reading the letter, but they were tears of gratitude. Martha had passed, but her lessons would remain alive through her family and through all the women who were inspired by her story. 25 years after that marriage that lasted only a day, Sarah was organizing the wedding of her oldest daughter, Lily Rose, who was 23. The young woman had chosen to get married in the same church where her mother had experienced such defining moments. During the preparations, Lily Rose asked a question that surprised Sarah. "Mom, doesn't it make you nervous that I'm getting married in the same church where you were betrayed?" "No, honey, that church is also where I learned one of the most important lessons of my life. And besides, you're marrying John Robert, who is completely different from your ex-stepfather." "How can you be so sure?" "Because you two built a relationship based on transparency from the very beginning. He never hid anything from you. You talk about everything. You respect each other. Those are signs of a healthy relationship. And what if he cheats on me in the future?" "Lily Rose, there are no guarantees in life. But you know your own worth. If he ever cheats on you, you'll know that the problem is his, not yours, and you'll know you deserve better. You taught me that. And my grandmother taught me. It's a legacy that passes from generation to generation. Women who know their worth don't accept being mistreated." On Lily Rose's wedding day, Sarah was in the same room where she had gotten ready 25 years earlier. But this time the atmosphere was completely different. Lily Rose was radiant, confident, with no doubts about the man she was marrying. "Mom, thank you for teaching me that true love doesn't betray, doesn't lie, doesn't hurt. Thank you for choosing well, for choosing someone who values you. I learned from your example. I saw how Dad Lucas treats you, how you respect each other, how transparent you are with one another. I want to have the same kind of relationship." The ceremony was beautiful and moving. John Robert and Lily Rose exchanged heartfelt vows, looking deeply into each other's eyes, without hesitation, without doubts. During the reception, Lucas approached Sarah. "You know, I never properly thanked you." "Thanked me for what?" "For giving me the chance to love you. If you hadn't had the courage to leave that first marriage, we never would have met. And I thank you for showing me what true love looks like. Our kids are lucky. They grew up seeing an example of a healthy relationship. I hope they carry that into their own lives." During the toasts at the reception, Lily Rose asked to speak. "I want to thank my mother for teaching me the difference between love and obsession, between affection and possessiveness. between care and control. Mom, your example showed me that it's possible to have a happy relationship based on mutual respect. And Dad Lucas, thank you for being the father I chose to have, showing me how a man should treat a woman. Sarah was moved by her daughter's words. All the pain she had gone through 25 years earlier was worth it to reach that moment. Rachel, now Lily Rose's maid of honor, also gave a speech. 25 years ago, I watched my best friend go through the most difficult moment of her life. I watched her discover a betrayal on the day of her own wedding, but I also saw her courage to choose the truth. Today, I see the result of that courage. A beautiful family, children who grew up knowing they deserve respect, and a daughter who chose her partner well because she learned to value herself. At the end of the reception, as the guests were leaving, Sarah stayed a few minutes alone in the church. She looked at the altar where she had promised to love, honor, and respect Nathan 25 years earlier, not knowing he was betraying her. She looked at the same altar where her daughter had just married a man of integrity in a ceremony full of true love and transparency. "Thank you," she whispered, not quite knowing who she was thanking. Mrs. Martha, who was no longer there physically, but whose teachings remained alive. Chloe, who had the courage to tell the truth. Life, which had guided her to true love through pain. Perhaps she was thanking all of them. 30 years after that day that changed everything, Sarah was sitting in the garden of her home, watching her grandchildren play. Lily Rose now had 2 children, and Sarah's youngest son had also gotten married and started a family. Rachel, your lifelong friend, approached with 2 cups of coffee. "What are you thinking about?" "I was thinking about how interesting life is. 30 years ago, I thought my life was over when I found out about Nathan's betrayal. Today, I look at everything I built after that and realize that was actually the beginning of my real life." "And do you still hear from him?" "No. I heard a few years ago that he got married again and divorced again. Seems like he never learned to be faithful. And Chloe? Chloe, yes, we've kept in sporadic contact. She's doing well, still married to the same man. We became friends, can you believe it? That terrible situation brought us together in a strange way. And your grandchildren? Do they know the story?" "The older ones do. Lily Rose told them an age-appropriate version. She wants them to grow up knowing it's important to choose well the people we love." "And how did they react?" "Logan, who's 8, said that when he grows up he's going to choose a wife who never lies to him. And Sophia, who's 6, said that if anyone lies to her, she'll leave just like Grandma did." Rachel laughed. "They learned the lesson." "I hope so. I want them to grow up knowing they deserve to be loved with honesty, transparency, and respect." That afternoon, Lily Rose arrived for dinner with the family, as she did every Sunday. During the meal, she made a comment that left Sarah thoughtful. "Mom, a friend of mine is going through a situation similar to what you went through. Her husband is acting strange, coming home late, lying about where he's been. She asked me for advice." "And what did you say?" "I told her to talk to you, that you'd know how to guide her better. You can give her my number, I'll be available to talk." "Mom, don't you get tired of helping other women with these problems?" "No, sweetheart. If my experience can help someone avoid years of suffering or find the courage to change their life, it's worth it." 2 weeks later, Sarah received the call from Lily Rose's friend. She was a 35-year-old woman, married for 10 years, mother of 2 children who suspected her husband was having an affair. "Hi, Sarah, Lily Rose told me your story. I'm going through something similar and I don't know what to do. Tell me what's going on." "My husband is acting very strange, coming home late, getting calls he won't answer in front of me, being evasive when I ask about his day. Yesterday I found a receipt from a restaurant we've never been to, at a time he was supposed to be at the office." "And have you talked to him about your suspicions?" "I tried, but he always says I'm being paranoid, that it's just work stress. But my gut tells me something's wrong." "And do you trust your gut?" "I do, but I'm afraid of being wrong. What if it really is just my paranoia? Let me ask you the same question they asked me 30 years ago. Do you really want to live in a relationship where you constantly have to be suspicious? Where you have no peace? No, but we have 2 kids, the house, a whole life built together." "I understand. But think of it this way. Is it better to find out the truth now and be able to make an informed decision, or keep living in doubt and find out years from now, when it might be more complicated? You're right. But how do I find out the truth? Talk to him one last time. Be direct. Look him in the eye. If he keeps denying it and you still have doubts, maybe it's time to dig deeper. And what if I find out he's cheating on me? Then you decide whether you want to try to save the marriage or move on, but at least it'll be a decision based on the truth, not on doubts. The conversation lasted almost an hour. Sarah offered all the support she could, remembering how alone and confused she had felt 30 years earlier. 2 weeks later, the woman called back. "Sarah, you were right. I confronted my husband again, and this time he confessed. He's been having an affair for 6 months with a co-worker. I'm so sorry. How are you holding up?" "I'm devastated, but also relieved. At least now I know the truth. I don't have to keep doubting my own perception anymore." "And what have you two decided?" "He wants to try to save the marriage. Says he'll end things with the other woman and go to therapy. But I don't know if I can trust him again. And you don't have to decide right now. Give yourself some time. Process all of this. The decision has to come from your heart, not from the pressure of others." "Thank you, Sarah. Talking to you gave me the courage to seek the truth. I'm glad I could help. And remember, whatever decision you make, you have value and you deserve to be happy." Conversations like this became a regular part of Sarah's life. Through Lily Rose, through her talks, through word of mouth, many women came to her seeking guidance on troubled relationships. In every conversation, Sarah reinforced the lessons she had learned from Mrs. Martha, that it's better to be alone and dignified than accompanied and humiliated, that true love doesn't hurt, that every woman deserves transparency and respect. At 70 years old, Sarah wrote a book telling her story and the lessons she had learned throughout her life. When Love Wears Red became a bestseller, helping thousands of women recognize their own worth. During the book launch, a journalist asked an interesting question. "Sarah, after 30 years, are you still angry at Nathan?" "No, I'm not angry. In fact, I'm grateful to him." "Grateful? For betraying you?" "Grateful because his betrayal freed me from a life that would have been built on lies. It led me to true love. It taught me lessons I could pass on to my children and to thousands of other women." And what's your message to women who are going through similar situations? That they have courage, that they trust their instincts, that they don't accept less than they deserve out of fear of being alone, and above all, that they know that after the storm always comes the calm. After the pain comes wisdom. After the end comes a new beginning. During the book signing, an elderly woman of about 80 approached Sarah. "My dear, I want to thank you for writing this book. Thank you for coming to the launch. My granddaughter is going through a situation similar to yours. Her boyfriend constantly cheats on her, but she's afraid to break up with him. I'm going to give this book to her. I hope it helps. And tell her that a life based on truth, even if it's harder at first, is always better than a life based on lies." "I will. And I want you to know that your grandmother must be very proud up there." The woman's words touched Sarah's heart deeply. Mrs. Martha would truly be proud to see how her granddaughter had transformed a painful experience into a source of inspiration for other women. End of story. Now tell me what you thought of this story and where you're following along from. Do you believe Sarah made the right decision by ending her marriage at the first sign of betrayal? Leave your honest opinion in the comments. Thank you so much for your company, and don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other emotional stories that touch the heart.